Welcome to Switched On Thinking, a podcast that explores the real-world networking challenges faced by businesses of today and the future. Twice a month, we deliver insightful and informative analysis of the key role that networking technology plays in driving business success and ensuring business continuity. Switched On Thinking is brought to you by NETGEAR, delivering innovative networking solutions you can count on, so you can spend more time on what matters most, growing your business. Now, here's your host, acclaimed author and tech columnist, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Switched On Thinking podcast, where I'm going to be discussing how NETGEAR and its partners are solving real-world networking challenges of today and indeed the future. And today, I want to explore the technology that many of us are guilty of taking for granted, and the importance of the relationship between vendors that make it all possible. For example, HawkEye Innovations are a group of inventors, mathematicians, developers, technical gurus, production experts, and above all, sports fans who develop and deliver the most sophisticated officiating tool in sport. And when you're watching almost any sport, from cricket, soccer, baseball, tennis to NFL and volleyball, gameplay is often stopped and decisions are made with sophisticated vision processing technology, which enables sports to not only track balls to millimetre accuracy, but also soccer players and even cars. So today I want to explore how HawkEye and NETGEAR are working together to achieve all of that and much more. But enough scene setting from me. Let's get Kieran Purdie from NETGEAR and Kat Hayes from HawkEye Innovation on the podcast to learn more about the relationship between these two companies and how they deliver huge successes in front of a live global audience. So welcome to the Switched On Thinking podcast, guys. Kat, can you begin by telling the listeners about HawkEye, your role, and why technology is critical to your business?
Well, I'm Kat Hayes, and I'm a senior network engineer at HawkEye Innovations. You probably know us best, or we are most famously well known for the tennis and the cricket. So we are the HawkEye. But we do a variety of other sports, everything from football to rugby to baseball to American football to Iranian volleyball. If there's a sport, we generally have some involvement in broadcasting software and the media. And my role there is to head up the networks team and effectively deal with the communications of how that gets from pitch side back to another place.
Fantastic. And there's so many areas of that I'm excited to delve into later, especially Iranian volleyball. That's something I want to go into a little bit deeper. But Kieran, welcome to the show too. But can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your role at NETGEAR and the kind of problems that you're solving with technology?
I mean, I am your general business development manager. I don't like that title, to be honest. I'm a pre-sales engineer, technical engineer. I replace mice. I also live vicariously, or vicariously, actually, we're in the UK, through Kat and many others like Kat. So I get to jump around and live through their technology experiences and help them on the networking side of things.
Now, one of the reasons I invited you both on the podcast today was to understand how HawkEye and NETGEAR are working together and how critical that relationship is, as well as the technology. So what fascinates me about this story is HawkEye has developed the most sophisticated vision processing technology in sport, which enables you to not only track balls to millimetre accuracy, but also soccer players and even cars. But the problem is also heavily reliant on the network. So, Kat, I would imagine you're in a situation where this has to work, and it has to work now on a daily basis. And so can you share some of the demands of HawkEye software and that need for that reliable network to make everything a success?
Well, of course, unlike traditional networking, where you can delay a project and wait till it's right, with something like a sporting game that's been scheduled and, for example, things like the World Cup, we cannot turn around to the world and go, sorry, guys, we've got a bit of a network failure. We'll pick it up in a few hours' time when we've sorted it. So it's very, very demanding in the sense that, as exactly what you said, it has to work, and it has to work now because that event is happening and it cannot fail. So reliability and ensuring that the network, which is effectively, the heart that the software runs on, and the software cannot function without a reliable backbone. So it's really, really key for our business that the really clever guys and gals who go and make this amazing software and make this happen have a nice, easy time when we get our jobs right.
And from NETGEAR's perspective, Kieran, can you tell me a little bit more about how you support a global operation like HawkEye with high-profile sports games in multiple time zones? Because I would imagine it's incredibly challenging. It
is, Neil. I'm not going to lie. We don't sleep. We drink a lot of caffeine and Red Bull, and we eat very little other than takeaway fast food. That's pretty much the mandate when you work with HawkEye worldwide. Well, I mean, we're quite lucky in the sense that NETGEAR is a pretty connected company worldwide. We're in pretty much every country in the world, every region. We are a networking company. Our mission is to connect the world to the internet. So we're all connected pretty well. So I've got colleagues like my colleague Neil Smart in the UK. We've got another chap, Alex Pendleton. Both those guys are fantastic. Alex sits on the West Coast. So we've got guys covering West Coast, East Coast, guys in Germany. And we all sit and talk daily, bi-daily, weekly. So there's a great support team for me personally, and obviously for customers like Kat that we can all reach out to and work with together. So it works quite well, but it is, it's not an easy task. People got to be ready to go if something goes wrong. But I think that's probably IT in general, right? I've worked in enterprise IT, small IT, big IT, distributors, resellers, and everyone is relying on IT now. So it's probably quite that similar concept that if something goes down, then you've got to go to work.
And what I'm quite conscious of, I think for most people listening, we all take the kind of technology that you guys are providing for granted, because we've all watched whatever sport that we enjoy watching. We rely on that technology to clear up any decisions, but we know very little about what goes on behind the scenes. So before a huge sporting event that will have a global audience watching, I'm curious, Kat, what kind of challenges keep you up night, and what role do NETGEAR play in helping you ease those concerns that are keeping you awake at night?
The main sort of challenge and the heart of our business is that it's in the name. It's HawkEye Innovations, and we're always doing something new. At the end of the day, you could have a cricket game in a remote part of India. How are we going to get that to work? What's the connectivity like? Are we doing something via the internet where there is not fantastic connectivity? And what are the ways that we can adapt and overcome to looking at these? I certainly know that I've been having a look at like Project Loon, which is Google's internet balloons that are available in parts of Africa and Brazil. But recently we had a new project that we were looking at for the Major League Baseball, in which we were the first people in the world to be using these 25 gig cameras for some of the analysis. And we are the first people in the world to be using NETGEAR switches. And we all have very new things coming together and new protocols. And effectively, it wasn't playing very nicely when we were doing the testing for this. None of it was talking and playing ball. And effectively, that's where we threw it over to NETGEAR, going, something awry is happening here. Kieran, help! And effectively, I think you can jump in now and say how you fixed that, because you guys definitely deserve the credit.
Cool. I don't know if I want to take the credit for that, but it's like Kat says, though, right? What's not to be excited about? If you like technology, and that's your kind of bag. And I wouldn't say I'm a networking guy. I'd probably say the same about Kat with technology people, and all the stuff where you're the first and what Kat's involved in, and she gets to go away and create these solutions. We, and probably me personally, love being part of that. And just this example, I guess, was something that's not been done. So this is the kind of problem you roll into a lot of the time. And these guys had their 25 gig, are they 8K, Kat, or were they 4K? Or 8K, right? 8K, 25 gig. And that took us into a world of forward error correction on 25 gig and above speeds was not something native to us, turns out. We looked at it and went, yeah, it should be fine. We both ran through it, should work, plugged the cameras in, nothing worked. And then everyone starts to panic. But we went back, looked at it, and worked out that it was we had one type of forward error correction. You had a 50-50 chance, there's only two, and we had the other one. What are the odds? But that for us was our chance. Obviously, we appreciate working with these guys. These guys spend an awful lot of money with us and would expect us to work with them quite rightly to solve problems like this. So we go away and we have a fantastic engineering team who could look at that and very quickly were able to, I think it was Reed Solomon, forward error correction, wasn't it? I can't remember which one it was, but the RS forward error correction was really quickly, I think in the space of 2 to 3 weeks, implemented all the way from not existing on that code base to implementation, software code update to public release and to be available to HawkEye even before that public release. So, I'd love to take the credit, but the truth is it's a whole host of people sitting behind me at NETGEAR that make that happen for Kat and the guys at HawkEye. So it's very much two companies, two sets of teams, but all working together in some really, really cool stuff.
Now, to bring what we're talking about to life here, let's take an event such as the Women's World Cup or the Champions League final, because a lot of people are going to be looking forward to that in a few weeks. Are there any challenges that you remember in stressful environments like this? Because I suspect there's going to be a few war stories.
I mean, there is always challenges, and that's the very unique thing about sport, and that's a very unique thing about working at a global level. You really need to be prepared for the unprepared. Even such thing as, maybe you have a hardware failure, for example, which, these things happen, whether it's a server or a switch or a monitor. You've got to get these things out, and it's got to be changed quickly and rapidly. And it could be throwing it down with rain, and that makes logistics and things very difficult. Obviously, nobody wants to be stood outside, and doing those things, but there is a whole team on site that very, very quickly deals with those problems. And this is where Joe comes into it in a big way with those logistics. So we've got spares, we've got all different kinds of kit in everywhere around the globe. And Joe makes sure that it gets to where it needs to be at exactly the right time.
And Kieran, can you walk me through NETGEAR's role in ensuring that these mini networks that HawkEye software is dependent on all work seamlessly together? Because in many ways, that is the unsung hero, isn't it, as well, the network?
It's all a team game, a lot of testing, Neil, I guess is the key to it. Some of it you don't know until it happens, and there's some certain things and, protocols, things like priority flow control, which is an absolute swear word.
Don't talk about it.
I don't even want to go into it, but...
You started it.
Well, no, I did. I brought it up. I don't know why I did. We've got to go there a little bit now. But as to something, where a knock-on effect, a NIC card can go down, all of a sudden something that works for you and is creating the solution is all now part of the problem. And NIC goes down, priority flow control kicks in, fills up the buffers and kills your network. But it's designed to do that. And so there's an awful lot of testing with stuff like this, because even if you think you've got the perfect solution, sometimes you actually don't realize you don't. And something goes wrong, it triggers a chain effect. And HawkEye have got fantastic, facilities for testing in their offices out in Basingstoke. And they've got acres of space with PCs and servers and switches. And likewise at NETGEAR, we've got equipment in our office over in Binfield and all over the world. So testing is key. But a lot of the time, problems just happen. So it's the testing post problem as well that goes on. And
and it's trying to stop that thing from happening again, and doing a wash up, doing a black box meeting and trying to figure, okay, this is something new. We've not seen it before. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again and let's learn from it.
Yeah.
And Kat, I'm curious, when you're running global events, heavily reliant on networks and software, I've got to ask, where do you begin to tackle securing it all? Because it's one thing keeping everything online, but then securing it adds another level of complexity, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And security obviously has to be paramount. And it's finding that fine balance between having something safe and secure and it also being not so secure that it's operationally detrimental. You have to be very mindful of, it's basic practices. What's the physical security? What's the network security? And zoning that network out and what is internet facing, what is inside. Is that physically secure? Is the van locked? Does that, these kind of things, because this is where those kind of challenges can arise. And I think it's those those things that often get forgotten.
Yeah.
That when you work in a really nice clinical environment like an office, and that's where your network is, you've got a custom built space that's put away, and all those fun kind of security practices are done. Where this is, you kind of have to adapt to the environment and adapt to the different place on site. And you also have to be very mindful about the zones of the world that you are operating in as well. Because obviously each different league, each different sport will have their own requirements. And they will say, if you're connecting into us, you've got to do this. If, another telco, AT&T, might want a different thing. So it's having a relationship with all those kind of vendors and being able to put something in that's suitable for the customer and that's suitable for us. Going back to the team, the guys have just done a big project to roll out a new layer of firewalls globally. So they're working on that very, very hard at the moment. We've got a security guy, Jamie, who's absolutely awesome, and he's heading that up, and loads of other things. And it's also making sure that the global team are on board with all those practices. Are they doing the right thing? And ensuring that we keep training and educating people to be doing, good internet practice, good internet safety, shall we say, and good security.
Have you got those password screensavers as well? Don't tell your password to anyone on the internet.
Exactly.
Just to bring everything we're talking about to life here, when the Premier League games arrived on, I think, Amazon Prime earlier this year, it quickly revealed the problem, to me at least, with latency. For example, very often I would get a goal alert on my phone before it actually appeared on my TV. So, Kieran, how much of a challenge is latency when a sporting event is relying on a NETGEAR network to make that real-time decision?
Oh, don't put that on our head, Neil. I see where you're going there with that.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah. This is all you. This is all on you.
Turn on back, Neil. For us, the world of latency, our latency is quicker than you can blink. It's barely not there. But you do raise an interesting point, because again, for us, switching is the one thing we generally don't blink about at NETGEAR. We have a lot of new technologies coming out all the time. But switching is our absolute bread and butter. It's where we hedge our bets. It's where we're absolutely confident in what we do. I think, we've got great engineering teams. We've got great product management teams. We've got a chap called Laurent Marcia, who is our head of fully managed switching at NETGEAR. There's a great team in charge of the other switching families also, as well as support engineers, pre-sales engineers, and all of these guys are there. We go through alpha tests, beta tests, public tests, all the groundwork we need to know to say, right, if the latency is susceptible, and here, our latency between copper and fiber is so minimal, we can include both of those mediums for transport inside the same link aggregation group. So there's an awful lot of work. That means the point of the whole convoluted answer was we absolutely trust our switches, Neil. But that is the world, right? Generally, that is what happens. Sometimes people don't understand it, but it takes time to get a live video feed from A to B, and then from them to refeed that and seed that back out to you, all the mirrored servers that would have had to host those video feed. Talking
to you both today, I think what really shines is this relationship that NETGEAR have with HawkEye. So, from the outside looking in, it seems that there's no egos, and it just all seems to be about everybody working together to deliver something special. Is that relationship something that's very important to you both? And I'll throw that over to you, Kieran.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can probably hear, Neil, we're not so much customers or colleagues. We're all very much friends. We've all, although Kat's only been at HawkEye for what, year and a half, Kat?
Yeah.
It's like we've known her forever. We're all similar. Joe, who works at HawkEye, I've known for 7 years, and we're all genuinely friends inside and outside of this. We all love what we do. We all love the companies we work at. And that's genuinely what it is. I go into HawkEye and take pictures of stuff that I shouldn't, because I'm like, this is just cool, man. 8K cameras, and one guy in there, I'm not gonna lie, he's got two like dual inch 50-inch screens as his monitors. His glasses are huge, as you could expect. But no need for it, but it's absolutely amazing. And I'm fortunate enough to live in a world of that, working at a manufacturer at NETGEAR, and we get to revel in, and we're all under NDAs with each other, so we get to share little cool stuff that's going on that we can't tell you, Neil, until you stop recording. But and it's genuinely just appreciation of that. We're cool people, they're cool people, and it just works.
Kat, I'm curious, when you're looking to innovate, I mean, you mentioned innovation there. So when you're looking to innovate and improve products, is this something that you'll work closely with NETGEAR with too?
Yeah, of course. And it's one of the many reasons that I'm doing this podcast today is because I would really like a favour from Kieran to get my hands on their latest gear.
Yeah, call me out like that. Oh, got
there we go. Throw you under a bus. And yeah, that's exactly what it's about. And this is where you need them. And going, we're already looking at using their stuff before they've even brought it out. We're looking to the future, looking at new projects, new adventures, new things that we're doing, and seeing how kind of like the product suite aligns with that. Of course, can we repurpose and can we reuse stuff that's been out in one place? Maybe it's been used for cricket, now it's coming and back out and then going out for a basketball tournament. We do a lot of basketball in the US. But then we've kind of got to be looking, and we've got to keep the pace up. So is the new stuff going to be better and more suited to what we need to do?
Kieran, one of the things that I was doing a bit of research, and I came across the Major League Baseball camera implementation, because I know you've got a lot of powerful kit going on in there. But can you expand on that for people listening that obviously don't know about the great work that you're doing there?
Yeah, so that's again the 8K cameras, but that took us into a place at NETGEAR that we've never been before. So that's actually on our two 4500 series switches dedicated to AV at the moment, and those are, you've got one which is 48 ports of 1 gig / 10 gig / 25 gig, then it's got 8 core ports of 100, and then you've got dedicated 40 / 50 / 100 gigs on 32 ports. And if you said to me, are we going to have 100 gig switch at NETGEAR, I would have laughed in your face 2 years ago. It just wouldn't have been a thing, right? The whole kind of SMB world is still adopting 10 gig. The prices, now we're way below $100 a port from thousands. So that is still filtering out. It's becoming more of the norm, maybe for backbones if you're replacing networks. But certainly 100 gig was just blown my mind, and it's blown my mind since we've been doing it. The Cat and HawkEye were actually the first, I believe, worldwide to actually make these switches. So it was a great unknown for both of us to go into it, and that takes us back to the whole forward error correction story that was blowing all of our heads, but that we managed to solve. But it's a mix of copper connections, fiber connections, 25 gig.
Oh, that was another one, because I wanted to use copper and fiber, and I wanted to do 1 gig copper, and you were like,
converter modules for this. We're converting from this to this to this, and converting from OM4 back to Cat 6 or Cat 7 copper cables. It's all very much geared around that 25 gig and 100 gig switch though, which is kind of the backbone of that little setup. I call it little, but obviously it's vast, and replicated amongst multiple sites feeding back into the colossal HawkEye network. But it's all kind of based around our Pro AV switches. And if there's stuff missing, which is sometimes the case when you're pushing the boundaries and you're doing something that hasn't been done before, I think there's this kind of mutual trust between certainly myself and Kat and HawkEye and NETGEAR that if it is something missing, that we can do it. And things like PTP, in fact, is another thing that was missing. We had it in certain permutations on certain switches, and Kat turned around and goes, well, actually, do you know what? This would be really handy for us to have in other situations, and to also have on the 4500 series switches. That just came out a couple of months ago. So we then again, the forward error correction thing was a P1, right? That had to be resolved there and then to get the solution up and running. Otherwise, the connection between the camera and the switch did not take place, just would not work. But then things like PTP, where it's a nice to have, we can look at it, work with HawkEye, assess it, and then a couple of months later, that's actually just come out. And it brings me joy to know that I work in a place where I have a manufacturer that is willing to back and support what I go out and do. And if I turn around to my customer needs this, and there's a valid use case for it. If Kat just wants silly stuff like, wrapping switches, probably won't happen immediately, right? But if there's a general use case, and NETGEAR is very much networking and technology people internally as well. And we can go back and feed that. And like I said, PTP, transparent mode on the 4500 series, just came out in its latest version of code a couple of weeks, I think about 4 to 8 weeks ago. It gives me pleasure to go back and say, right, there's the other feature that was a little bit less important, but nonetheless, there it is.
From my perspective, whilst NETGEAR is such like a huge organisation, there's like this really kind of small company kind of personal feel to it. Where if you were perhaps to go to another vendor, you can't go with kind of these demands and these things. For example, I think PTP was a great one. I can get to talk to Laurent and like the head of switching, and you get listened to when you get asked for stuff. So can we have a PTP clock built into the switch that we can now use this? And you can ask for different things, and those things will get listened to. And quite often I get a no, not today. But very often I do get a yeah, actually that would be good for us. That would be good to you, good for you guys. How can we make things better and do so and have some fun along the way?
And something else that I think stands out here is a lot of big sporting brands throughout the entire world are going to be looking to HawkEye to almost lead the way with technology. So I've got to ask, Kat, what is it that excites you about the road ahead for HawkEye and the role that emerging technologies are going to be increasingly playing in sporting events?
Well, I think we've only got to have a look at the events of the past year of how, sad to say, coronavirus has really shaped the face of technology. We're all working from home now, or very much most of us are. We're not sat in the studio. We're doing this from our houses. So effectively, overnight, technology has changed the world, and we've got to adapt to those changes. I certainly know that with social distancing, we can't have a load of guys packed into a van, and we need to look at how we can change and adapt our solutions. And I've certainly got in some very big conversations now about how we're actually going to deliver these things moving forward. How can we have people socially distanced? Where does the kit need to be? Can we do this? It's not can we do this in a different way? We need to do this in a different way, taking into consideration all these different physical, implementations. And how are we going to use technology to realise this? How are we going to move forward from there? And that's how to change and adapt very, very quickly, and how we can make people's lives better by using tech.
Absolutely. And Kieran, I'm going to put you on the spot here. With someone like Kat at HawkEye, they're looking to innovate more and use emerging technologies. So I've got to ask, are there any teasers that you could possibly leave us with today about the future innovations or products from NETGEAR?
Oh, you're going to get me sacked here, Neil. I'll tell you what, I guess, we do an awful lot of webinars, and this is what I told my marketing manager in terms of what we're going to be doing for webinars for the next 3 to 4 months. And for us, this is probably one of the most exciting times at NETGEAR in terms of new product introductions. We've got some fantastic stuff coming. If I could show you the pile of boxes that barricades me in my house that my wife is near to divorcing me because of all this fantastic technology. And this next 3 to 4 months, PoE is getting more powerful. Wi-Fi is getting even faster. And certainly switching is dedicated really in terms of things like AV and the world of audio visual deployments, which HawkEye fall into it. The family at NETGEAR is getting even bigger, even stronger, and even more intuitive. And I think that's going to be a big game changer in the world of AV, and that's probably all I can say. But if you get yourself over to the NETGEAR UK website or partner portal and get on our webinar schedule, we'll be announcing the day stuff comes out throughout September, October and November. So there's going to be a lot of announcements on my webinars, little pitch there to get you on.
I'm impressed, Kieran. You managed to do all that without breaking any embargoes. Kudos to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. But before I do let you go, Kat, can you point the listeners in the direction of how they can find out more information about your work at HawkEye and find you online?
Sure. So if you head over to the HawkEye website, www.hawkeyeinnovations.com, you can see some really, really great stuff on there about what we do. and find out more about the sport, find out about more of the different roles. So certainly not just me in the business, about how our operators and how they work on site. And there's absolutely tons and tons of fun stuff over there. So it's really worth a look.
Excellent. And Kieran, from a NETGEAR perspective, where should listeners go to learn more about the tech, and where to contact your team if they needed to carry on this conversation we started today?
Similar to Kat, netgear.co.uk or .com, depending on where you are. We've got a fantastic community website, which is community.netgear.com. That's a place where you can talk directly to NETGEAR, the general managers. So there's really open access. We're on Spiceworks. You can reach us in the UK at UK sales or reseller at netgear.com. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're even on Facebook, all the usuals.
There's so much I've loved about our conversation today. Yes, I mean, we're talking about technologies such as networks, software, and 4K cameras. There's so much going on there. But I think at the heart of all that, we've got the human relationship between HawkEye and NETGEAR. And I think that just seems to be centre to everything. That, of course, and a Bombay bad boy pot noodle seems to get everyone through the days. But more than anything, just thanks for joining me today, guys.
Lovely. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I just love this conversation because of how it highlighted the challenges that Kat faces at HawkEye, especially when playing a pivotal role at some of the biggest sporting events in the world, such as a World Cup or Champions League final. And if we just look at soccer for a moment there, we can have dozens of football games playing at the exact moment in time, all of which heavily rely on technology. And as Kat said there, it has to work. There is no in between. So behind the scenes, we have NETGEAR, and I just love Kieran's examples of how they were writing new protocols for their switches to work with some of HawkEye's software. And for me, that highlights this great partnership and adaptability that they've got by working together. And I think it not only shows the value of technology, but also the importance of relationships between HawkEye and NETGEAR to deliver in high-pressure environments with, let's face it, a global audience watching. But that's it for today's episode of Switched On Thinking. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a rating and review on whatever platform you listen. And I also invite you to join me again in 2 weeks, where we will further explore how NETGEAR and its partners are solving real-world networking challenges, not only of today, but also the future. So I'll speak to you all again next time on the Switched On Thinking podcast.